Hello, I'm Nadia, and this video explains how to search the Hoover archive, which includes an important historical archive collected by General Władysław Anders, photographed here. He was the commander of the Polish Second Corps during World War II. During the invasion of Poland in 1939, about 200,000 Polish troops were captured by the Soviet army, and they were eventually deported to hard labour camps in Siberia. And over the next year, about another 1.5 million people, mostly civilians, were also deported to Siberia. There they faced a slow and horrific death caused by starvation and disease. Now, when Hitler invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, Stalin agreed to release some of these Polish prisoners to form an army against Germany. And General Anders was the man responsible for recruiting this army, and he eventually evacuated them out of the Soviet Union to Iran, where they served under British command. So if you have a relative who served in Anders' army, the chances are that there will be a record of them in this archive. The Polish deportees joined millions of other nationals, mainly Soviet citizens, who were banished to the most remote outposts of Siberia. Dispersed across a vast territory of 5 million square miles, they laboured under horrific conditions in sub-zero temperatures, mining coal and metals, felling timber and constructing canals, roads, factories and railroads to support Stalin's efforts to industrialise the Soviet Union at breakneck speed. Many of these people perished and were never seen again. What's unique about Anders' collection is the thousands of survivors' testimonies describing the conditions in the Gulag, and these have also enabled maps to be constructed like the one here. Anders collected these records to support Polish interests in a post-war settlement, and I think he intended that they could be used as in criminal prosecutions for war crimes against the Soviet regime, and that's something that never happened. His original collection is archived at the Hoover Institution in California, which is why it's synonymously referred to as the Hoover Archive or Anders Archive. In July 1941, Stalin signed a joint declaration with the Polish government to release some of his Polish prisoners, granting them a so-called amnesty. The lucky ones were issued with release certificates, which enabled them to travel sometimes vast distances, thousands of miles across Siberia, to the army recruitment centres in the south of Russia. These release papers are important historical records because they specify the location of the camps where the prisoners had been sent. And this is important documentation because many of these records were subsequently destroyed by the Soviets and more recently by Putin. In 2008, Poland's National Digital Archive, or NDA, made Anders' collection available online. I've highlighted the URL for this website at the top of the page. So anytime you want to search this archive, you can enter a reference number into the search engine, which will take you to the Hoover collection. There are more than 100 scanned documents in the Anders collection alone. These are digitised copies from 1,600 reels of microfilm from the Hoover collection. This amounts to more than 1.5 million pages of documents which can be accessed on the NDA website. So this is a fantastic resource, but the archive is vast and it remains quite difficult to navigate. So what we need is an index to what's in those folders so that you can find the documents you're searching for. I was able to navigate the archive thanks to an index produced by Mark Ostrovsky, which he posted to the Cressy Siberia Facebook group. His original index included URLs that you could click on to go directly to the website. But unfortunately, none of those URLs work anymore. So Mark then produced another index that gives you the reference number that you can enter into the search engine instead. With his agreement, I've simplified here that index, which will give you a quick guide to the most searchable parts of the archive, and I'm providing a link to my index in the description of this video, so you can download that and use that for reference. The index includes the main sections of the archive that can be searched in alphabetical order, and I'll show you some of them in this video. There are thousands of other important documents in the archive that aren't organised that way, and I haven't included those here. What I want to do here is to give you a flavour of the kinds of documents that are available in the archive. I'll start with one man's description of the conditions he faced in a labour camp. There are many excerpts from such statements that have been translated into English, and so they're quite accessible sources of information if you don't speak Polish. The excerpts are anonymous, so you won't be able to search there for a relative. But other files do specify people's names and require translation from Polish or Russian, so extra effort is needed, but it's worthwhile if you find a relative. As examples, I'll show you what I was able to find out about two of my uncles who were deported to Siberia. To locate the statements of deportees, enter the reference number shown in red in the top left-hand corner into the search engine of the website. This is an example of the kind of information you'll find there. Because the labour camps were in such desolate and inaccessible outposts of Siberia, there was an urgent need to build railroads to enable the transport of goods like coal and iron that were being mined in the labour camps. This statement is by a prisoner who was assigned to build a railroad connecting Archangel with Vorkuta. I've shown the location on the map on the left. The region is inside the Arctic Circle, and work and living conditions were appalling. The men worked with primitive tools like hammers and pickaxes. This prisoner says that of 6,500 men in his division, a staggering 4,000 died during the winter of 1940 to 41. They died from starvation, exhaustion, frostbite, and dysentery. By spring, it was clear to the camp commanders that they couldn't meet their deadline for completion of the railroad, and they began to panic. A special delegation arrived from Moscow and arrested the head of the commission. Other high-ranking officials were tried on the spot and sentenced for sabotage to 5 to 8 years of hard labour. Let's take a look at the personal index cards next. They're organised alphabetically and there are thousands of them, so the chances are that you might find your relative here. My last name is Rupniak, so I went to this file location and searched in folder 4. When I type the reference number into the search engine, I can see a selection of scanned index cards, and I had to scroll through these to locate folder number 4 and look for my family name. I actually didn't find any information for my family in these personal index cards, but I did find them in other places, so it's important to be thorough when searching the archive. And we need to remember that although there are thousands of these index cards, there were hundreds of thousands of Poles evacuated from Siberia and under extremely difficult conditions. So it's not really surprising that some records may have been lost or were filed in the wrong place. There are also tens of thousands of index cards that are filed in numerical order. I don't know how you could search those without knowing which number was assigned to the person you're looking for. This slide shows you the information that was recorded on a personal index card. If, like me, you don't speak Polish, I've translated this card so that you can see what it says. If you find a relative here, it could give you a lot of important information, including which labour camp they were sent to. It's worth searching this archive thoroughly because you never know what you might find. In this folder, called the List of Military Families Deported to Siberia, I found my uncle Ludwig, who was 45 years old when he was arrested and deported. This is the only record I've found anywhere for this relative. The record says that he had two sons named Józef and Marcin. One was a gunner in the army and the other was an officer. That information is correct, but actually they weren't his sons, they were his brothers. Like Ludwig, Józef was deported to Siberia, but he managed to escape, and he told my cousin that both he and Ludwig were sent to the same timber logging camp. According to this record in the archive, the Gulag was in Kustynaiska Oblast. I found it difficult to locate this place, but after translating the name into Russian and searching that, I found a match with this region shown in a red circle on the map, which coincides with a known timber logging area. I also found a separate document in the Anders collection for Józef, and that also names Kustynaiska, and I'll show you that document next. The archive holds thousands of release certificates which allowed the Polish prisoners to leave the Gulag and enlist in the army. They're organised alphabetically and hence they are searchable. However, the certificates are written in Russian, so you'll have to first translate your relative's name into Russian. And for this, I just use Google Translate, as you can see here. Locating the certificate you're looking for is complicated by this because they're filed in Russian alphabetical order. And on some of the certificates, the names are handwritten, which can make it even harder to read the letters. Although navigating these certificates is tricky, I was glad that I took the time to search through them because I found a record for my uncle Józef. His name is handwritten in Russian, which was hard to read, but I believe it matches the translation of Rupniak I showed you on the last slide. I really got lucky though because someone has written the name Rupniak on this card, and I've circled that in red on the left. The year of birth, 1922, also matches Józef's birth date. And the place of deportation, as far as I can decipher it, matches what I found on the document I showed you before for his brother Ludwig, Kustynaiska Oblast. I've translated the text on this certificate so you can see what it says. To translate documents from Russian, you'll need to find a keyboard with Cyrillic characters. I use this free website. The URL is shown at the top of the page. And using the online keyboard, you can type the Russian text from the document, as I've shown down here, and then copy and paste that text into Google Translate. Yes, it's tedious and time-consuming, but if you find the person you're looking for, it's definitely worth it. I'm going to end with an example of another type of document where I found some useful information from this archive. This is from a section called Reports of Polish Deportees, and this is organised according to the province and county where they lived in Poland before they were deported. My family was from Drohobycz, which is near Lwów. In this folder, I found a report by my uncle Józef, which describes the phony elections that were held in East Poland to install a Soviet government after Stalin's invasion of 1939. He says that the civilians all had to surrender their weapons, and members of a committee came to individual properties to write down the names of all residents who were eligible to vote. I've read elsewhere that anyone who refused to vote was subject to arrest, and it was only possible to vote for the Communist Party. I hope this quick guide inspires you to take a look for yourself in Anders' archive. For more information about conditions in the Soviet penal camps and how Anders evacuated his army to safety, please check out my other videos, and thank you so much for watching.